Our gospel reading for the first Sunday in Lent is Matthew's account of the temptation of Jesus in the desert. For me, all the temptations that the devil presents to Jesus are temptations to control. The first temptation, the devil knows that Jesus is hungry. He's been fasting all the time that he's been in the desert. So he says, if you're the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. It's a temptation to make the stones into what they are not in order to satisfy Jesus' hunger. For us, the temptation is not to think that we're part of creation, but to think that creation is there to satisfy our desires. And so we have a temptation to manipulate the environment, to control the environment, to use up the environment, to make sure we get what we want. And that is not what creation is for. And so there's a temptation to control the environment. The next temptation, the devil takes Jesus up to the parapet of the temple and says, if you're the Son of God, throw yourself off from this temple. Because if you're the Son of God, you know that the Father will do anything to rescue you. And now it's a temptation to control God, to force God's hand. And again, we fall into that same temptation. We may not think of it that way, but every time that we try to bargain with God, every time that we try to do everything we can to make God do what we want, it's that same temptation. And instead, we're called to open ourselves to do what God wants. And then the third temptation, which I think it may be the most tempting one of all, the devil takes Jesus up to the mountaintop and says, you can rule, and shows him all the kingdoms of the world. You can rule all of this as long as you pay homage to me. And I think that would have been a great temptation for Jesus, because it would mean that, you mean I can force everybody to do right? And I don't have to die on the cross, and I don't have to go through all the anguish and all the trials and tribulations of what it means to be a human being. I can just go ahead and make everybody do the right thing. And that's the temptation we fall into. Don't sometimes we wish we could make everyone do it the right way, which means make everyone do it our way? Every time we get frustrated on the road, every time we get frustrated with our coworkers, every time we get frustrated with the people at home, or with our family members, and we wish we could make everyone do it the right way, which means our way. But if we realize what Jesus has done for us, that he didn't succumb to these temptations, but rather gave of himself up in order to save us from sin and from the power of death. If we realize what Jesus did for us, we don't have to try to control anything or anyone. All we need to do is to trust in God, who loves us so much. And so during this Lent, we turn our hearts and our minds to God. We put our trust in God's love, and we follow the one who chose not to control us, but to save us.